Hi everybody, this is Kevin and welcome back to another manga review. And today we're going to be taking a look at Fairy Tail Zero from Hiro Mashima, which is a prequel to the series that explores the founding members of the guild. And it's pretty interesting that I'm reviewing this book now because I just reviewed volume 53 last week, and that gave us some more backstory into the relationship between Mavis and Xerif. And actually in the afterword, Mashima said, hey, go read Fairy Tail Zero if you want to learn more. And this was being published at the same time that Mashima was working on the main Fairy Tail series. This is actually 13 chapters, and it released monthly, I think back in like 2013 or so, along with the main series, around the same time that we got volume 53, actually. It started, I think, around the Tartaros arc and then wrapped up there, which is perfect timing because there was that one chapter that basically explained Mavis'S connection to Xerif, and this book explains a lot more, particularly the founding members and all their connections to the guild. So, you may be asking, this is a prequel to the series, should I read this before I even start reading Fairy Tail? And the answer to that is no, because this spoils a lot of stuff that you're going to want to find out as you read the main Fairy Tail series, and who these people are. If you don't know, obviously, I'll tell you. Obviously, in the middle, we have Mavis, who's the founding master of Fairy Tail. That's Zira, who's her best friend growing up. This is Precht, who becomes Master Hades and the villain of the Sirius Island arc, which I think that was volume 25. So, yeah, you want to at least wait till you read volume 25 in that whole arc so you at least know who this guy is. Because the first time you meet him, he's a villain. So you want to learn, that he's a villain and then go backwards and say, oh, how did he turn evil? Yuri, who is Makarov's father. And then Warid, who is the fourth emperor, or actually I believe the third emperor of Ishgal, one of the wizard saints. And this takes place 100 years in the past. Obviously Yuri's no longer with us, neither is Precht, mind you, because he passed away too. But yeah, let's get to the book here. It's very good. It's a lot thicker. The artwork is still top tier from Mashima. Mavis really is the little fairy. It's named Fairy Tail. And her whole thing is she wants to go on a quest to find fairies. And that's the question that was posed at the beginning of the first chapter. Do fairies have tails? And that's why it's spelled that way. That's the eternal mystery and the eternal adventure as to why the series is still even going on. But cool thing to make note of, I'll talk about this at the end, but it's called Zero, and this character's name is Zira, which is interesting. And as you go through it, make note of the zero in the chapter. But it starts off on Sirius Island, and Mavis, you see, she's a cute little girl, 6 here. Her parents died working for this guild here, the Red Lizard Guild, and she was taken in as an orphan, but is abused. You see, there's dirt all over her face and everything, and just look how this guy's handling her. And he takes her shoes off, which, you see her later on, she's not wearing any shoes. She's got her feet out. And that holds true because of this moment here where the guy, he stole her shoes. Well, didn't steal her shoes because he's taking care of her, but takes her shoes and says, oh, you're not fit to wear them. I'll give them to my own daughter. And from that point forward, she's like, screw shoes. And that's young Zira right here, which they establish early on how Mavis is an orphan and just treated like crap. Oh, just sweep out there and keep the place clean. And how Zira is all spoiled and how the two of them don't really like each other. But then tragedy strikes the land. And Blue Skull, this evil dark guild, shows up and starts wreaking havoc on Sirius Island, looking for a jewel that they're looking after. And in all the commotion, Mavis actually takes Zira and says, I'll protect you, you'll be okay. Because there's actually debris has fallen on Zira here. And she takes her, they run away. And, throughout all this, Zira, after bullying her for all these years, says, let's be friends. Sure, I'll be your friend. And you get these cute little moments between the two of them. And then she just collapses, and Mavis looking at her Zira, are you okay? Are you okay, Zira? Wake up, Zira! And then it cuts back here to, they sort of have this as an ambiguous ending to the first chapter, which comes full circle. But it cuts from a few years later as these treasure hunters show up, Warid, Seacrane, Precht, Gaybalg, and Yuri Dreyer all show up here looking for the treasure. We're looking for the Sirius Orb, and that's Makarov's father right there. And Mavis is here now. She's 13, so yeah, a few years passed. and just saying, "Oh, what beautiful weather!" You know, the two girls that survived on this island all by themselves for so long, and Xerif shows up, and they hear that there's people aboard. You know, they only hear animals usually, but they hear, you know, Yuri, Precht, and Ward making noise. They're like, "Oh, let's hide. Let's go to the library." And Yuri finds his way in the library, and Mavis scares him. What is the kid doing here? I thought this island was deserted. And she asks, you know, what you're doing here. And he says, we're looking for the Sirius orb. We're looking for the treasure. And she's like, I know where the Sirius orb is. I can show you where it is, but you got to show me where a fairy is. Just look at her cute little face. You'll show me where the fairies are? All right, kid. So they're doing like this guessing game. It's almost not like truth or dare, but they got to like, it's some convoluted game where they have to say a truth about each other, and whoever wins, you know, Yuri will get the orb, or Mavis will see a fairy, and she's able to outsmart him in the way that she says, you blinked, you know, 50 some odd times. Like, how do you know I blinked that many times? I just know, I haven't blinked at all. So they have their funny game, and Xerif's just looking on like, oh, she's crazy. And she's shy from other people, obviously, too, because, well, not Mavis is, but Xerif is, because she hasn't seen anybody in so many years. So, you know, they have their little back and forth, and Mavis outsmarts him, and he's like, wow, how'd she get that? No! And interestingly enough, you see Precht here doesn't have the eye patch. Like here he has the eye patch on the cover, and when you saw him as Master Hades, he had the eye patch. And then even there was a few flashbacks when they showed Precht as the master of the guild, and he had the eye patch then. And it's cool how they explain what happened to his eye. Like sometimes, I always like that when you get the backstory as to how the character got his eye patch, because sometimes they never explain it. So Mavis takes him to where the Sirius orb should be, but finds that, you know, it's gone. So she says, oh, it must have been Blue Skull all those years ago when they ransacked the island. So let's go into the Heartland and see if we can find it. So they take Mavis aboard. And Mavis says, you know, I want you to meet my friend Xerif. She's very shy. And as she does that, you see like the faces that Yuri's making as she's talking to Xerif. And he's like, oh, what do you mean, Xerif? So interesting bit of foreshadowing, which almost you want to read this if you get this, you want to read this twice to really pick up on certain things. And also, again, making note of the Xerif, how in the beginning it was more dark, which I'll show you, it makes more sense, but it's fading away. It makes sense, trust me. So they make their way to Hargian, which is really close to Magnolia, where the Fairy Tale Guild is, and none of these guys know magic. Mavis knows magic, but none of these guys do because they're treasure hunters, and they make their way to this bar, and Mavis is like, "What do you know anything about Blue Skull?" And no, I don't know a thing. And they start attacking them, because it turns out that they do work for Blue Skull, and Precht being a badass, he's got like these blades underneath his robe there where his hands are that he just starts shooting at, and it's like so cool. The fact he doesn't have magic, he still has this ability where he can use these daggers, and they trap him in a magic pattern, also known as a Jutsu Shiki, which Freed uses in the main series. But then Mavis says, oh, this is an imperfect magic circle. I can just walk right out. And she does. And then she uses her magic, which is just illusion magic, but it does the trick. And she summons the Sirius Wolf. Look at her go. Look at Precht. He's like, whoa, what do you mean? How did you summon that thing? So it scares him away, and, you know, they find out what's going on. And then as they're walking out of the town, she passes by Xerif. So they make their way back, and they all start saying, oh, we got to get firewood, we got to get some fish, we got to get this. So they all go their separate ways again, and they agree to make their way there and steal back the orb. So again, she sees Xerif all by herself, and is, you know, what are you doing? And they reminisce again how they weren't really too friendly when they were kids, but now they are. They're best friends. And Xerif says, I'm going to protect you, Mavis. So then, I mean, you get like the lolly fan service, but, you know, it's there. What are you going to do? It's like in every manga. So anyway, they make their way to Magnolia, and they find that the town is completely in shambles, and Blue Skull has erected their dragon here, keeping it hostage. So they're talking to some of the townsfolk, and they're saying that they're under control of Blue Skull, And just as this guy's talking to them, the Blue Skull minions just fire a magic beam at him and kill him. And they're like, kill the intruders! So the whole gang here is trying to fend him off, which they're doing decently. And then Mavis uses her illusion magic to summon the serious soldiers. All these soldiers to sort of scare them away. But then the master of Blue Skull shows up, Jeffrey, and he's like, oh, they're just illusions. Don't trust them. And then he erases them. And then all the soldiers fight back against everybody, and everyone's getting their ass kicked here. There's Yuri, there's Prek, look at his eye. Boom! A magic blast right through his eye. So that's how he gets the eye patch, which how fucking badass is that? Just look how badass this dude. I would say he was my favorite villain in the whole series when he became Master Hades. So they flee in disgrace, and they're patching everyone up. And Mavis is like, what are we going to do? We have to go back there, if only to help those innocent civilians under their rule. And she's pondering what to do when she finds Xerif bathing in the water here. And he says, you must leave this forest at once, because Xerif has that power where anything living that he has any relation to just dies. And you see here the trees, they're all flush with the leaves, and then they all die. And Mavis acknowledges that it's the curse of contradiction. They call it something else. It's the Unksalem's black magic, and also known as the curse of contradiction. And Xerif acknowledges how smart she is, and like, well, you should keep your distance. But Mavis actually uses her illusion magic to summon all these animals for Xerif, and he's like, oh, that's so kind of you. They're my illusions, so to sort of give him some warmth. And he feels them, and he says, I feel the warmth. And Mavis says, well, can you help us, teach us some magic? We have to fight and liberate these people. So Xerif agrees, saying, keep your distance from me. And teaches them all magic, and they all say what they want to do. Ward, a tree magic. He becomes a tree because he's the only one here still alive, in the real series. And I guess learning tree magic, he can turn into a tree, and that's how he survived. Yuri, obviously, Makara was like 90 years old, so Yuri's dead, being his father. And then same thing with Precht, who perished being a villain. So Mavis has like the cute little, I'm the Black Wizard, like a black mage almost in the Final Fantasy games or something. And they come up with a plan here to infiltrate and go in there and take back the orb. So what the plan is for whatever reason, Jeffrey, the master of the guild, is out on a horse wandering away, and Ward's going to go distract him so everyone else can go there and seize the treasure. And Mavis, using her illusion magic, makes an illusion magnolia, which she sets on fire. And Jeffrey thinks, he wasn't tricked the first time. He could see right through her illusion soldiers. But here he's tricked and sees, shit, my guild is on fire. When in all actuality, it's a illusion. So, this guy uses like this, he gets trapped in here, in this cage. And you see Yuri and Prek there, taking out all the soldiers. And yeah, Yuri learned lightning magic, which is interesting because Makarov eventually learned like giant magic, but his son and Yuri's grandson Loxus learned the lightning magic. So they claim the serious orb, and as this is going on, because Mavis and Xera have Jeffrey trapped here, he says, don't touch that orb because you'll really destroy Magnolia. And Yuri, not hearing this, he grabs it. And actually, by him grabbing it, he turns into this dragon. The dragon skeleton that's like around the whole town, Yuri turns into it. And just goes completely berserk. And really great artwork here with the dragon. Just, Moshpit loves his dragons, that's for sure. I mean, they've been in a lot of his series in Raidmaster, and obviously we see it in Fairy Tail, and even in Outer Space of Eden Zero, the dragon's there. But, the dragon's wreaking havoc. And then Mavis concludes that the only solution she has is to use the Law spell, which eventually becomes Fairy Law. But here it's just called Law, and it wasn't perfected. It was taught, Xerif only taught them magic for, a couple days, it seemed. And, again, look. she uses it and thinking, Xerif said, don't use it. But she's got to do what she can to save her friends here. And by casting Law, basically it makes it so that Mavis can't grow anymore. That's one of the side effects in not having it perfected. So you get a cute moment here with Xera and Mavis. We're like, we'll search for fairies together, all of us together. And it's a sweet little moment. And she does the Law. 1, 2, 3. And the dragon disappears. The spear breaks, and then Yuri's back to normal. But Mavis is just lying down there unconscious. So Yuri wakes up and immediately says, "Where's Mavis? Is she okay?" And this is where Warren says, she's okay. She had to use this terrible magic, and she's not going to be able to grow anymore. So that's why when we saw Mavis again in the normal series, when she saved them on Sirius Island, and then again in the Grand Magic Games, she still looks like this, because that's the side effect. So Yuri apologized, said, "It's all my fault. I let my greed get the best of me, trying to get this orb," because, they were treasure hunters. That's all they wanted it for, was to sell the orb and make some money. But through all this, through all their journeys, they've become best friends. And they start talking to each other. And Yuri says, now that things have calmed down, do you want to go find some fairies together? And she's like, oh, yeah, we'll look for the fairies. So, really great heart-to-heart. And then Yuri says, he looks down here, and she's all questioning. And he says, so, since we're friends, there's something I'd better say. It's about Xera and Mavis. Is something wrong with Xera? Xera is somewhere around, right? And then Mavis, Xera, where were you hiding again? Isn't it about time you finally got used to being around Yuri and everyone? Mavis, I don't see Xera. That's why it makes more sense to read this again a second time so you pick up on these things. But basically, in this first chapter, right, when they're being sieged by Blue Skull, Xera dies right there. And because Mavis is on this island all by herself, she uses her illusion magic to create Xera to be with somebody. And a really heartbreaking scene right here where they go back, because there's all these other instances where Mavis is talking about Xera and everyone's just looking at her like she's crazy. And that's where Yuri spills the beans. And at that moment, Mavis is completely shocked. But I guess being a young girl, when all that shit happened, she was 6 years old, and she had the illusion magic abilities. I guess that's what you would do. And it was a sad moment, man. I was getting a little choked up reading it the first time. It was pretty emotional. And just seeing her disappear. And Mavis starts pleading, saying, well, if you disappear, I'll just make an illusion again. And Xera says, because it's in your cognition, it won't happen like it was before. And they start hugging and crying. And a beautiful scene right there. Really quite good. And as Xera fades away, he says, you're not alone anymore. You have real friends in the real world. And Xera says, I'll be in your heart forever. So, beautiful moment right there. Absolutely beautiful. And in that instance, as this is happening, Yuri actually sees Xera. Xera looks, sort of appears for a second and looks at Yuri. And she says, thanks for everything you've done. Please look after Mavis for me, will you? Of course. Oh, man, beautiful. And then as that's happening, everyone sort of sees her spirit or whatever. Beautiful scenes. Mashma does such a great job, these emotional scenes. I mean, it's the feels. It really is. And people constantly criticize the guy for the power of friendship nonsense. They did invoke friendship quite a few times here. But to me, that's what makes these stories so good. And they found the guild, and Mavis says, since we rid Blue Skull we rid Magnolia of Blue Skull, let's have a guild here to protect these people. We'll name the guild Fairy Tale, which that's her moniker there. Fairy Tale is the endless adventure, because do fairies have tails? And beautiful. So there they all are. They got it all built. It's the birth of Fairy Tale. Look at them all standing there. And then it just shows everything once more. And we get a little cameo of the new gen of Fairy Tail of all our friends right there. And then you get like some info. I think we're in the year 796 right now, or maybe it's 94. But it sort of goes, and there's a bit of a typo here, which I'll get to in a minute. But yeah, it shows like some other stuff, like they had the wars, Yori gets married, Makarov's born, Mavis'S gravestone, which if you read volume 53, you know about her death and everything. Mavis'S will, Prek becomes the master, then Prek leaves, becomes Master Hades, Acnologia appears, and then here's the typo, because why is it going backwards? It should be 784 or 85 there, shouldn't it? I don't know. So, some good stuff. I really enjoyed it. Nice Q&A in the back here from Mashima. And actually, how Jose, one of the first villains in this series, is like the grandson of Jeffrey here, which is cool. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. If you're a Fairy Tail fan, you definitely need to read this. If you're an anime only, there are, I believe, 13 episodes. There's a Blu-ray called Fairy Tail Zero of 13 episodes. Well, interesting because this is 13 chapters, which adapts that. And definitely check that out as well. And if you're a Fairy Tail fan, I highly recommend it. And good stuff. Can't really complain. You know, I'm a huge fan of the series. So thanks for watching, guys. Let me know your thought in the comments down below. And stay tuned for all sorts of videos coming soon. I don't know what I'm going to do next week for Fairy Tail content because the 6 box set got delayed again and isn't coming out until June 31st. But I'll think of something to post. So stay tuned for the channel to videos every day. So have a great day, guys.